Okay, so let's start processing Andrew Faris and Olivia Kory, which, by the way, I've talked to both of them on the phone in the last 2 weeks. They are both as intelligent as they sound on that podcast episode. Let's get into, kind of processing this out together. I don't really have a specific agenda. I don't really have a specific thing. So what I might do is, kind of open it up, and, if someone has some observations, and we can kind of build into that, and we can get more of a specific process if we need, whatever. But maybe I'll just initially toss it out there. What all did you think? What are some things that stood out at you? Let's get. Sarah, let's start with you.
Yeah,
Deanna,
sure.
Deanna, you. Sarah.
Or either of us.
Deanna unmuted, but Sarah, why don't you go ahead?
Okay. What I thought was interesting was because of the movement from YouTube for Action to demand gen, they had some interesting insights into how demand gen was performing preliminarily as compared to YouTube for Action. Now, some of this might have to do with the fact that some of the people using demand gen may be early adopters, and there's maybe less competition and less traffic in that space currently. But that basically average D2C ROAS 27% better on demand gen than video action campaigns, and demand gen had a better boost in what they call the post-treatment window. And then it was also interesting because she also compared YouTube reach campaigns to video action campaigns, which I was just blown away from, because when I ran YouTube reach campaigns, I was not able to get any attributable conversions. However, Google is just obviously assigning less value to these campaigns, even though they are impacting total sales and revenue in a meaningful way. And I thought that was very interesting as well.
I'm curious on the demand gen side. Remind me, how are we typically leaning into building demand gen right now? My memory is that you all have done quite a bit in making those more video focused. Is that correct? Or not necessarily?
As of recent, instead of launching a YouTube for Action campaign, I'm just flat out launching a demand gen campaign with only video assets, and then choosing what ad formats I want them to show on.
So here's an interesting tidbit on that is, again, the research firm I was talking to today, she was very surprised when I told her that we have used demand gen increasingly and that we were liking it. And I was thinking about that, and I was wondering if, based on other, agencies and brands that she's talking to, I just wonder if, because we're focusing a little bit more on that, like shorts and those other ways that you were talking about, less of almost like what it was made for, and more of like just that video action aspect. I wondered if that's one of the reasons why we're liking it and others aren't. I don't know. That was just a theory.
I was seeing good performance on it though when I was running it with all the available ad formats too.
Okay.
So I think that's just a different use case for it. Yeah, I know. I really like it as a campaign type, but I think going forward, we really need to lean into demand gen as perhaps even being our primary YouTube campaign type. That's my thoughts, at least.
Does anyone disagree with that? That's a strong statement. I don't really have opinions on that. You guys know YouTube better than I do.
I would second that, because just the same way I was blown away that YouTube reach or YouTube for reach has the same type of performance as video action campaigns. I think I'd like to see more research on that in comparison in terms of audience and ad formats, because I feel like they have totally different objectives, and one is more direct response, another one is more awareness campaign. But the way how they measure that would be very interesting to see. But overall, I think because the video action campaigns migrated to demand gen, and typically it is the safest way to introduce this video platform or YouTube to the client with something that can prove the efficiency of the channel and just the regular numbers in the UI to see that actually drives revenue. That would be my first choice. YouTube for Reach would be further conversation, something that we can have done, like, because I think the measurement of that will be the key to bring the client on board with that, to convince them to use it in the future. I think it has a good potential, just we don't have a good way of measuring it.
So we need an incrementality firm, you're saying?
Well, here's so they mentioned this about the Sarah, help me out. It was brand lift, right? They were referring to something like that for incrementality measurement, which Google has for brand lift and other studies that you can launch, but that requires a sufficient investment in order to trigger them and be eligible for them. So that definitely, I think one of the companies that I was thinking about was Pixability, because they worked out years, I would not afraid to say decade ago, maybe a little bit less, but they've been cracking that issue for a long time. And they have a lot of technology that they build in to track this kind of campaigns. So.
And the new conversion lift option that I'm working on a couple of different accounts, I from what I can tell so far, it looks like demand gen is one of the campaign types that can be utilized. So it's not strictly a YouTube metric that they're measuring.
I thought it was search, PMAX, and YouTube. No, am I wrong?
For the conversion lift thing?
I've received some internal documents that seem
really?
to indicate that we can also use demand gen.
And
I don't see why
also
not.
the one of the reps that Google or that Sarah contacted about that said, to my knowledge, there isn't a big investment required.
Though I did hear
so
from
just getting approved through the list.
I've heard from another Google rep that it was 1K a day though.
I guess big is quite quite subjective.
Relative, right?
Which also, I mean, yes, and also, no offense to that rep, but that also doesn't necessarily mean that that's actually the thing. Because we'll hear different things from different reps. We'll see. Yes. Okay. Yeah. Any other general thoughts either on that or on other things that you found interesting or learned? Oh, I had actually real quick one thing on that. That's what I was going to say this about what you guys were talking about when I was chatting with Olivia about, we were talking about incrementality and then like especially smaller brands, and she mentioned this on the episode with Andrew, but they have been trying to figure out some sort of solution. We were talking about that, and one of the challenges, like I kind of understood this, but hearing her walk through their process, it made more sense. And this also goes into that episode I shared with you by Taylor Holiday and Common Thread Collective, where he was talking about incrementality and just this idea of like, you're not measuring incrementality when you run one holdout test, like there is this like long-term pattern and then like analysis and then determining what you do with that data and how you're going to apply that. And that's just one of the challenges for SMBs. And one of the reasons why, frankly, they're expensive is because they're doing a lot of work, and I thought they're doing a lot of work and they're providing a lot of value. And that was kind of interesting to me, kind of one of those, like, it's not out of reach of SMBs just for an arbitrary reason. It's difficult for them to get enough data, first of all, but also like you really do kind of need a fairly big commitment over a longer period of time to actually get a more accurate incrementality study. And that's just one of those challenges for SMBs, which I'll say real quick, that was I don't think this is totally news for us, but one of the things they talked about that just really was interesting to hear and stood out to me was that idea of like for smaller brands, just limiting what you're doing and not obsessing over getting on every single channel, because that not only can hurt a lot of things, you know, it can hurt your ability to do every channel well, especially if you have to spread a small budget out of that. But also, this is actually a good, you know, to me, like measuring incrementality is actually an argument for that too, because like if you're focused initially on starting, let's say just on Meta, this is what Olivia was pointing out, then you actually can tell when you change something and you're, you know, do sales go up or do sales go down, right? And it's just actually easier kind of to identify that as you're smaller because you're closer to, you know, the buttons that you're messing around with on advertising. So which is also why sometimes with real small businesses, I mean, we've said this numerous times to real small businesses sometimes, like, hey, I know you want to do Google ads, so sure, throw up a brand campaign if that makes sense, but like you need to keep building out your Meta first, and then, you know, come talk to us in a year, sort of a deal, because it's just not going to do you any good right now. So anyways,
we actually just did that with one of the clients we just landed.
Oh really?
Yeah, like they came to us probably about a year ago, honestly, and we're like, oh yeah, can we do Google ads? And we were like, oh, maybe you should try, because it was a relatively unknown product. Maybe you should try Meta first, and they built it up, and now we're taking them on as of this week, which is pretty cool. But that was
Very
like
cool.
something
I forgot that they had. Yes, I forgot we had that
they wanted
conversation
to
a
go
while
with us
back.
the whole
That's
time,
cool.
and we were just like, nah, maybe like build some content, get on Meta first, and it worked
Nice
well.
work, SMB director.
Hey. But that was sort of what I was thinking about the entire video, was like, okay, well, this doesn't, like, I do SMB. This doesn't really even like the big thing is you need really good content for YouTube. And they did actually mention that in the video too, was you need high quality
AI.
content. And a lot of SMBs don't have that.
But I think AI is making that more accessible for them.
Right, exactly. And they mentioned that too. So I'm really interested in like, where can we send clients that don't have good content that can maybe make AI generated content easy? Is there a way we can do it? Also, if we
I've yet to see really good content for AI.
So
Yeah,
I don't know, man.
yeah.
I saw some pretty good Will Smith eating spaghetti videos.
Ah,
And I think that's what Google's trying to do with Product Studio, right? It's just not there yet. But like,
It's
I
getting
mean, give it some time.
But like, if we tell a client to work on Meta first, one of the things they're gonna do is create shorts, and shorts go right into demand gen, and so that's like an easy win. Because they already know what's successful on shorts,
or
and we can throw those right.
they're
into
reels, right?
Reels,
Reels.
Yeah. And then throw that right into shorts, and
let's
good.
okay.
Well,
So
they-
let's
they
talk
did-
shorts with that. Go ahead, Deanna, because I wanna talk specifically about the low barrier to entry thing that Olivia and Andrew were talking about. So let's talk about that next. But what were you gonna say?
I was gonna say from their studies, they saying the shorts actually was, though it's capable of incrementality, it was lower. So
Right,
I would always, I think at the end, Olivia was saying that instead of focusing just on shorts, and I think Andrew had his own opinion about it, but I would agree more with Olivia in terms of having a mix of it and not separating them would be more beneficial, instead of just trying to segment this is only on mobile. And the system already know if this is short formats, it will be putting it mostly on mobile. But I think removing the asset format from the, like, a bid strategy that has a picture of customer journey, make it more segment, like we're just taking into account of potentially good data to optimize the campaign. With the bid strategy, let's say we're talking about the video action campaign or smart bid strategy. So I would rather have all formats in one campaign to allow system work it out, instead of just forcing something into specific campaign. like shorts particularly.
I think that'd be a good thing to test. I don't think I'm leaning one way or another, like, because they're such different. They're different videos. Like one has way higher viewer engagement than the other. If you're just scrolling through shorts, it's very different from watching a video on your TV.
They are, but look, when you're on YouTube app, for example, are you only staying on shorts?
No,
If you're my 11-year-old, you are.
I never watch shorts because I'm too old. I don't know.
What I'm saying that there is a journey. There's so many points in customer journey and behavior. So you go from one place to another place to another place, and it's good if you have campaigns, and hopefully some of the bid strategy or some learning algorithm will pick up that it's you, and it will continue to optimize it. But if we taking that format out of that journey, then that might create. And again, I agree that it needs to be tested. I'm just saying. Talking about the playbook, for example, if we say this is what we think, this is our philosophy, we can test something outside of it with the certain parameters, but this is what we believe in. And that's what I am convinced because of the past experience. So just telling you my playbook here.
Do you remember Corey Henke's presentation at HeroConf
On
San Diego?
Infi.
Yeah. But he talked about the different ad types, and I wish I remember exactly what he had said, but it was kind of about that journey and utilizing the different ad types for the different parts of the journey, like educate, entertain. I think that entertain was his shorts thing, and just kind of a helpful general way of thinking about where each of those ad types falls into a user journey, and then how to develop content around that. And we should find that. I think he sent me his presentation link that we should look at that again. I would like to look at it again now after this, and again intake all of that together. So
I think what he's talking about, and I remember that part when he's saying like if that's for education, entertainment, etc. But then you'll have to have a certain customer targeting set up for those type of things, right? So that needs to be aligned with the format. It's not like you can take in-market audience and start shoving them shorts, right? Because the assumption would be, okay, well, this is format, we need to meet them in a certain place, but disregarding the intent of the audience could cause some friction in performance.
You said the word targeting, and I realized I don't know if they really talked about targeting at all.
They never
in this video, did they?
Nope. Which I was a little bit bummed about because I want to know what they have in there.
Olivia actually spoke a little bit about affinity audience targeting. I remember.
That would be a significant part of a YouTube conversation. And I'm not saying that. Yeah, that is interesting. I didn't realize that was missing until you said the word targeting.
I also wanted to point one other thing that I think we had an assumption, which I don't know where it came in my experience, but I've had it challenged with one of our customers, and I'm sort of on the side that what they showed me in terms of where happens the most exposure, and with YouTube reach, because it's very broad, typically very broad targeting, or it is not a conversion focused campaign type of in Google Ads, they mentioned that the most exposure happens on TV screens, YouTube TV, not an app, not an app, it's just when you just the screen part of it. So, and I thought that it's typically the most underrated device that we typically opt out of because it doesn't drive direct conversion. It has poor performance in terms of like, well, what are they going to click? Then I'm going to go to the website, and it's all like website traffic and views and some kind of action, which screen kind of lacks off. But
I want to see that data broken out into ages and channels watched. Like, is YouTube TV just like us parents throwing that on for our kids so they can watch Cocomelon on YouTube? You know what I mean? Like,
it isn't YouTube TV. It's the YouTube app on a smart TV.
On a TV.
when you
So-
looking at devices,
Well, I
and
think it
campaign-
includes both.
Still, because like I don't even watch that much TV, again, like the age thing, but in our family, this is going to shock everyone, like my wife and I probably are going to be more inclined to spend money and purchase things than my children. My children watch all of the YouTube stuff on whatever app or anything they can on our TV, because they'll watch it together. They watch this. It's one of those, like, they watch other people play Minecraft sort of things. Anyways, it just, again, that just kind of hit me, like, maybe that's because didn't they talk about how the TV just wasn't as successful in converting in terms of incrementality and stuff? Maybe that's why. It's just kids.
So there's two things. They wanted to differentiate YouTube on TV and YouTube TV. There's two
Mhm.
different things, because YouTube TV is a whole different platform where you have kids apps and stuff. That's where I think in order to put some ads, it's going to be very expensive. You have to reserve it and stuff. But TV screens, that's where I'm not sure. I watch movies on TV screens. Like I use it in certain ways.
YouTube?
Yeah.
Oh,
I
okay.
use YouTube just to like watch podcasts, so I'm sure that's part of it too. Like I have YouTube on my TV right now playing a
On-
podcast.
Okay, but
And
you're
also-
not old like
I'm
me,
watching it.
Austin.
Yeah.
You even click
Yeah,
on it
that's
on
yeah.
YouTube on a TV. Like if you're
What's
using a TV app, can you click on an ad?
Yeah.
Would it go to the
Mhm.
website? That's what I'm wondering. Like,
So
I
I don't
think
know, I never
certain
clicked
smart TVs can.
I've been seeing, so on when my daughter's watching them and an ad will come up, there's a CDA that comes up that'll send it to my phone.
Yeah.
Because I'm logged in on both. It's my account, so I can click to it and send that. And I haven't tried it. I should do that sometime. So I'm not sure if it just sends the ad to your phone or sends you to the website or what. But yeah,
Mhm.
Regardless, this is a strong argument to me for the use of exclusions. Right?
But
I
it
mean,
works. It actually works in terms
I-
of, I was blown away to see reporting for TV, YouTube on TV, that in some accounts, those TV screens work. They drive a really decent amount of conversions. And so there's also
I didn't mean
possibility of
device
direct-
exclusion. Sorry, I meant channel, like kids channel exclusions.
Mm.
Oh, that's
Oh, yeah.
overall. That's
Like the
even, yes.
Minecraft watching app for 4-year-olds, or
Oh, I
well,
think we're
8-year-olds,
already on
right?
board with that.
Yeah,
have to.
I'm saying it more for the broader, like they didn't talk about exclusions at all in terms of that, which it's fine. That's
So
not
true.
that's not a that's not a put down of them. It's just, as I'm thinking more for like broader audiences thinking about advertising on this and TV and all that. To me, like the usage of exclusions, especially for like kids channels, stuff like that, is pretty darn important, which is something that we do. So give yourselves a round of applause. Eric, you have a hand raised.
Yeah. So I had a couple of observations based around exactly what things that are very obvious, but I don't know if I've ever really thought of it. And we don't do much, if any, meta advertising. I know Jack does some, so maybe you can let me know if I'm missing something here. But something that I thought of when they were talking about this was that meta, and this is more for like, I don't know if either of these two things are very actionable. But something to keep in mind is that meta, that like a huge problem on YouTube ads is kids and toddlers and those types of channels. I don't see that being a problem whatsoever on meta. I'm sure there is the occasional, my kid is going to flip through reels or whatever it is on my phone. I don't think it's used at all close to the way that YouTube is in that regard, though. And like, I just don't think managing meta has that aspect of whack-a-mole and all of this wasted spend that, yes, we do exclusions, but like you'll never get them all. And there's always going to be more, and it's always going to be a problem.
That is a super interesting point. Like, you don't you don't typically hand your phone to your kids so they can scroll around on your Facebook feed. You do all the time for YouTube while they're at, while they're sitting at. Yesterday we were at a restaurant, and finally, after the toddler asked me like 14 times for my phone, I was like, yes, please take my phone.
Yeah.
That's
so
why I
anyways.
was testing. I was texting you yesterday.
Yeah.
I'm kidding.
That's why you got all of the gibberish responses. No.
And then the other thing, so Olivia pointed this out, and I think this is becoming, I don't know, less and less of a discrepancy here, but she pointed out that on Meta, you're by default logged in. And so, and on YouTube, so like we just got a new TV. It uses Google TV, which basically requires me to log in. And so, yes, on our TV right now, I'm logged in. I don't know. I think there is way less people logged in on YouTube, as Olivia pointed out, than there are on Meta. And so I saw someone recently say that, I think it was actually in a disagreement to a recent post that Kirk did, that Google's audiences are way better. Like Google's audience data, the data that it has on their users is way more in depth and way more broad, like includes a lot more than Meta. And so, but my thought is, if you're not logged in, it doesn't even matter. So I don't know the difference. All I know is that in Meta you have to be logged in, and in Google and in YouTube you don't. So
Facebook audience targeting, do you remember the guy who was on the news because he targeted his roommate with an ad with Facebook audience targeting? That's the power of Facebook audience targeting. They've had to try to tone that back, but they're still incredible. Whatever. You could never do that on Google.
I remember an article,
Google,
someone did that with Gmail.
Oh, are you serious?
Yeah.
Okay. Oh, you're right. I remember that as well. That's not audience targeting though. That's not. I don't think they used audience targeting. I think it had to do with like content and stuff.
It was contextual. Yeah.
Yeah. And even then, that's like a specific. Yeah. That's fair. That's not display. That's not display audience though, which in my opinion is not the same. Regardless, whatever.
I don't know.
Okay.
I think I could get a YouTube ad in front of Chris if I wanted to.
YouTube, yeah, probably. If you knew like what
exactly
channels you
would you
like and
target?
stuff like that, yeah.
What would I target?
But that's not audience targeting.
Old guys
That's
with kids.
Like if you target specific channel or like the topical, right? That's not like who this individual is. And that's where I still maintain that what Facebook knows about people based upon the fact that it's a social platform. So they have all of this, they have all this people information. That's very different than Google, which is primarily like about content and topics, which I'm not arguing that that's not also in its own way strong and good. I am arguing that they're not the same. Maybe it doesn't matter. Anyways.
One thing that they mentioned, that the Meta active users, I think the keyword here is active user base, is about 40% larger than YouTube across Facebook and Instagram. How is that possible? If we're talking about YouTube that accessed by billions of people, how many billions do we have? I mean, it's pretty open. You don't have to be signed in, right? So, and this means that they potentially have a greater exposure, but with a lot of untargeted or unspecified audience, while Meta on the daily basis has a much more signed in users, right? That's what we were talking about.
And even
so, to Eric's point, they have more active users than YouTube. So in this regard, you have a better targeting and more real estate there audience-wise than on YouTube.
Well, and even like, okay, think about the logged in stuff for a second. Like, I probably have like 45 Google logins myself, which is really not that exaggerated. So even that alone is like, okay, is that 45 users to Google's mind?
Active
Super
users.
different than Facebook. Well, yeah, but if I use them all for work relatively actively, on a weekly basis, I mean, 45 is not too much, but you get the idea. Like multiple, like I have a work, I have a personal, all that, right? Huh. I've never thought of that. That's a huge difference between the two. So with Google, you could be shown the same ad because like on your 10 different Google accounts, because it's like, oh, hey, this person would like this ad. And then they're like, oh, hey, this logged in person who's totally different, even though it's actually you. That's very interesting.
I mean, they do have probably ways to identify like if it's the same device ID, because
That's true.
I think it just doesn't go only in sign-in users to duplicate some of the things. If I were them, I wouldn't
That's
rely on specifically an account. If you log in into your profile and see what your interests are from account to account, they might vary, and that means that it doesn't. I don't think it's limiting. See, here's one of the things Google has with customer match, for example, is just like a different aspect of it, but it can be kind of identifying it. So when you upload a customer match, what is your matching rate? So they trying to identify if you have some parameters that you can add to it to duplicate some users, names, locations, devices, device ID. So probably more than just the sign-in part that's counted for.
Yeah, that's a great call. In fact, I remember just chatting with someone recently about that, how Google is really increasing, device ID as part of that, like trying to identify user across logged in accounts, stuff like that. So, okay, so we have about 3 to 5 minutes left. Anything else that you really wanted to kind of toss out there, thought was interesting, stood out to you?
One of the things that I was kind of thinking about through it, they talked about the 2/3 watched on TV, and stuff like that, and I just kept thinking about, like, when I'm watching something on TV, if I see an ad that I'm interested in, I immediately go to my phone and search it or type it in or whatever it is, and it seems like that'd be hard because it's almost happening simultaneously. And they talked about like Google or Facebook will claim credit for every view through conversion that it ever possibly could. And they said, YouTube is not good at getting those view through conversions. But if those are happening really close together, that could be very hard to differentiate. So I just wonder if how many people are looking up that brand or whatever it is, and then maybe that's part of where some of that disconnect is.
Not only would I go to my phone, and maybe I'm kind of a weirdy when it comes to stuff like this. I would
Super common word.
I would Night at the Museum. It's an inside joke in our family because of Night at the Museum.
I love that movie.
Yeah. So not only will I go to my phone, I will go by default I use the Safari app on my iPhone, not logged into Google. So like that's I have to believe that that's got to be somewhat common.
So, okay, so are they including location targeting
like that
with their signals as well as part of that? And why not? Why can't they determine it? Well, I mean, like you're probably all logged into the same Wi-Fi router, right? Does that? I mean, I just I don't know. I just think Google absolutely can track all this stuff. Yeah. I don't know. Super interesting.
There could be some privacy issues. And then I think that's, again, I think we don't have enough, Google, for some reason, doesn't have enough technology to do that attribution. I think attribution that's the big issue for YouTube. And for video action campaigns, it's a little bit easier, but I'm wondering, like, what would we need to do in our calculations to show the value of YouTube? Like some people saying that they would just multiply it, whatever they have in the UI, 2 times, 3 times, and this sort of presents the more accurate numbers. Like,
so what I would like to know on that before we answer that question, maybe we should do a follow-up video, but I would like to know the answer to when Andrew asked Olivia about whether this is a bell curve. I don't know if you remember that, in terms of the average. So the like, okay, so this is incrementality. I think it was like 342% higher or underreporting or whatever. And I think she was going to look into that of like, is there a general average that we can do, that we can identify so that we can at least start from that, or not. So maybe that's a good place to start, because we should probably wrap this call up to stay with our time. But I agree with that, Deanna. That is the next step of then determining, like, how do we actually, apply that to what our clients are doing, and then help determine what we can do. Because to her point, it also can widely vary. And the last thing I would want to do is tell a client on either end of the spectrum, like, wow, you're underreporting by 300%, when maybe they're actually on the lower part of that curve and they're losing money. I don't want to be the one to, lead them wrong on that, or vice versa. Like, oh no, you can't grow, and maybe they're on the upper end of that curve because they have great data and stuff like that. Great creative. So I agree. There's also a lot to think with that. And that's also, to me, one of those difficult problems where there's also a reason why, one of the smartest incrementality people in the world is saying it's really hard to do this for small clients. And those small clients tend to be more in the range of who we're servicing. So some of that is, we also have to, in some ways, be a little bit okay with the friction of, we might not have easy answers. And so what are some of the smartest ways we can do this with the answers that we have? So to be continued for sure. Let me go ahead and end the recording.